Hey guys, welcome back here to Advanced Bass Fishing, and appreciate you guys swinging by the channel today. And flipping a jig, everybody knows, is one of the best ways to catch bass. It has been forever. Flipping, pitching a jig, casting a jig, really good way to catch quality fish. Most people do not associate casting or flipping and pitching a jig with doing it with a white one. Now they fish a swim jig as a white jig, but we're talking about actual pitching and flipping and fishing a white jig on the bottom. So I'm going to identify the situations where white jig catches fish, and we're going to dig into that in today's episode here. And also, guys, speaking of jig fishing, I'd like to invite everybody to please check out the best jigs on the market, which is my Blaukat Throwback jig, my full-size throwback jig, and also my Power Finesse jig from Cumberland Pro Lures. These are one of the few living rubber jigs, hand-tied skirts on the market, guys. Attention to detail second to none. On the Power Finesse jig, we got the frog hair skirt on it, hand-tied, awesome jig. I'll have both of these in my Tackle Warehouse link in this video description if you guys would like to order some. I think you guys will really like them there. And also, guys, thank you for everybody that has taken time to subscribe here to Advanced Bass Fishing. Really appreciate that. Okay, guys, white jig. We do not make a white jig in my throwback jig or my Power Finesse jig. So this is something you'll have to tie up. I actually have one of my throwback jig heads on here, and I've hand tied the skirt. You can probably buy them though if you guys just look at some jig links and Tackle Warehouse there. You can probably find some white jigs. On mine, when I'm fishing a white jig, I like a fairly heavy head. I got a half-ounce head on here, and I use the Zoom. This is the super chunk on it. This is my setup for it on fishing a white jig. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about when you want to fish a white jig, when it works, because it's a very small window of situation when this works. This is a summer and an early fall type of a jig to use when water temperatures are over 75 degrees. That's number one. The number two thing with it, you got to have dirty water. This is a dirty water color. When you put a white jig in water visibility under 12 inches, it has a glow to it that is, you can't duplicate it with a darker color like a black and blue. It looks completely different in the water. And it looks like a shad. I mean, a white jig it's a shad to the fish. A dark jig is a crawdad to the fish. So that's the difference on it. And in the summertime of the year, the bass do feed heavily on threadfin and gizzard shad in shallow water, because in the summertime, a lot of times you'll see these shad schools that are up on the surface, like these dark clouds in and around shallow cover. So if you've got water temperature over 75 degrees and you've got dirty water, like water visibility under 12 inches, those are the ideal setup conditions for fishing a white jig. Now, the thing about fishing a white jig, I can't sit here and say, okay, this is the situation exactly. You got this water temperature, you got this water clarity, it's July, August, September, put on a white jig and you're gonna catch them. That's not how it works. A white jig, it's like the fish either want them or they don't want them. It's like wing fly. They either want them or they don't want them. And the only way that you really know is to really, find out. Now, one of the things that I have figured out with a white jig, once you do get those conditions that I talked about there, the dirty water and the warm water, is if you've got an exceptionally large shad activity going on, where there's a lot of shad flickering around and on the surface, like I just told you, this is one of the times I like to fish a white jig. I mean, when there's a lot of shad activity and you know that the bass are feeding on shad pretty heavily. So that's the first indication with it. The second indication is that one of the things I found out about white jig is they like to be around some type of a wood and rock mix. Now, I don't know what it is about it, but when I'm flipping and pitching a white jig, I want to have a rocky bank, usually some type of a steeper rocky bank with some type of wood on it. And they'll use both, guys. You can catch them just flipping and pitching to a straight rocky bank, a straight bluffy bank. If there's a lay down tree on it, that's even better, but it's got to be a little bit steeper of a bank. I've never done really any good, like on those flat banks where you have like shallow logs and lay downs and stuff like that. Have not had that much success. But here's a perfect situation for fishing a white jig. Let's say, for example, you got water temperature around 80 degrees and you're up the back end of a creek or you're in the upper river part and the water's dirty. Water's, foot deep, foot visibility. In a lot of those areas, you'll have channel banks up there, because when you go up in the upper river part, usually, or upper creek part, one side of the creek or river is usually a steep bank or bluff, and the other side is like a gravel or mud. That's how a river's laid out. if you go to those steep banks, like especially the bluffy type banks, take that white jig and just pitch it right to the bank and work it down into about 2 to 4 foot of water, just covering water along the rocks. And like I said, if you get to some type of a lay down, that's even better. That's the way I've had my most success on it. Another thing, I'll give you guys some tips and advice, and this is what a lot of people don't know, and it's a lot more situational. It's sort of like a paradox to what I just said. A white jig is also a really good bait to throw if you have cleaner water and vegetation. So say, for example, you've got submerged hydrilla or milfoil, something like that. You can catch a lot of fish in the summertime of the year pitching a white jig in those conditions. Perfect example, we were fishing it was a Bassmaster. Yeah, it was a Bassmaster Top 150 up at Lake Minnetonka in Minnesota. And that's Clearwater Lake, and you've got some deep hydrilla and milfoil. And anyway, Guido Hibden was telling me that he was catching his bass up there, flipping that milfoil with a glow-in-the-dark jig. And he showed it to me, and it was actually a skirt material, and it looked like a dirty white jig, but he called it a glow-in-the-white jig. And I didn't have any glow-in-the-dark jig, so I put on a white jig and started catching them, flipping that hydrilla and milfoil in clear water. Guido had a good finish in that tournament. So that's one situation you may try if you have grass in the lake. But it works good about anywhere where I just described that situation. It is a summertime deal. You're not going to catch many fish if that water temperature is below 80 degrees. But it's just another thing to file away in your bass fishing memory. One of these days you might find a situation where that white jig will catch you some good ones. So hope it helps. We'll talk later.